Will America have hikikomoris like in Japan? Have you heard about the hikikomoris in Japan? For those who do not know about the hikikomoris in Japan, these people are basically people in Japan that have given up on Japanese society and will not leave their home. That is right. Hikikomoris are homebodies who have decided to not deal with the difficulties of Japanese society and stay home permanently. That means they only go out to do simple things like buying groceries, but they will not socialize with anyone. According to many Japanese reports and researchers, there are over 1 million hikikomoris in Japan. This is bad for society because that means that you don't really have productive citizens in your country. And by the way, hikikomori's age ranges from teenage years all the way to people in their 30s and 40s. I know, it's crazy. I'm sure you might have lots of questions as to how they deal with the real world once they decide to finally leave their home and get a real job. Who knows? But as I do more research about hikikomoris in Japan, I start to wonder if the same sort of thing will happen in America and other Western countries. Despite of the cultural differences Japan and Western countries have, the driving force of hikikomoris and their decisions to distance themselves from the rest of the world is economical. Yes, economical. Now, the competitive world of Japan's workforce is fierce, and if you do not perform, then you will be shamed. Some people just can't take the pressure, and as a result, they lock themselves away from society for years and years, and many of them go into the non-judgmental world of video games. Video games is the most common escape for hikikomoris. So, this really is a Japanese phenomenon, but it seems to be happening around the world more and more. To be more specific, it is happening in first world countries like, South Korea, America, and England, and I believe France, Germany, Italy. You get the point, right? Not at the same level as Japan, but there have been more and more reports of this happening in Western countries. Guys, before we get on any further, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for future notifications. I talk about anime, manga, video games, geek culture, and Japanese culture. If you're into any of that stuff, make sure to subscribe. Now, on with the show. So, do you think that America would have hikikomoris like in Japan? The answer is simple, but first, let's take a look at Japan. Modern day Japan values money and work. As a matter of fact, doing overtime is a virtuous thing to do. The problem is that many teenagers in Japan, mostly boys, have low self-esteem, and as a result, they don't want to participate in society. Some hikikomoris will become violent at their parents because they believe their parents did not raise them well enough to deal with the hardships of the real world. And I think many of us, especially here in the West, can relate. You know what I mean? There are so many details that we can cover about hikikomoris, but let's take a look at what the Western world. Mainly countries like America, Canada, England, countries that are more wealthy, One of the reasons why this might not happen in the Western world is because, plain and simple, people in the West tend to be more extroverted. We want to be around other people, sometimes even if those people are not good for us, but we want to be around people. And the Western world is very extroverted, guys. However, at the same time, with social media and mobile technology, as well as millions of work-from-home jobs that the pandemic had created, hikikomori in the West is very likely to become a trend. I don't think that people are going to lock themselves up for years in their homes like in Japan, but we might have a mild effect of that here. Maybe people staying at home for like 6 months straight and not going out anywhere or socializing. Japanese researchers are saying that the number of hikikomoris will probably increase from 1 million to 10 million in the next few decades. Now, that's kind of terrifying, seriously. I mean, that's crazy to think about. That's 10 million people in your home country that are not willing to socialize. This really could lead to depopulation, you know. But anyways, if hikikomori does become a trend in the West, it is going to be quite different. For example, instead of going out to meet up with with people at the bar, people will just use dating apps like Tinder. Instead of going out to your friend's house, people will just use Zoom for meetups. Everything that happened in the pandemic, pretty much. In the West, people might reduce the amount of friends they hang out with. So instead of hanging out with like 5 friends, they might hang out with 1 or 2 people. To avoid having to go out and meet people at work, they will choose to work from home. So we are already doing most of these things, especially the work from home part. And I believe, by the looks of it, it's going to escalate more and more in the future. Friendships groups will become smaller. People will spend less time outside for intimacy. They will just use dating apps and other social media sites. And then of course we will have a tiny percentage of the population that will become hikikomori in the West. But honestly, I think it's probably going to be like 1% or much less than that of the population. So, will America have a rise of hikikomori like in Japan? The answer is very little. Yes, I think we will have that in the Western world, but it's just going to be very little. It's going to be a very small portion of the population. I don't think it's going to escalate, that crazy. Americans are way too extroverted to stay locked at home for such a long time, especially people in South America. But hey, whatever your thoughts are, please comment below and like this video. Guys, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching. This is your boy Andy Matrix. Godspeed.